My name is Dion Steele. I'm an educator and an entrepreneur. I do not own a gun as of yet.
What's up? I'm D Jackson. Most people know me, one half of the group 80s Babies. I'm a father. I am a gun owner.
What's happening? This is Lamont, Blade Triple. Yes, I'm a gun owner.
Okay, brothers, I appreciate you guys coming in today. This is the first episode of Think Tank, so I think, we have four very intelligent brothers that I know, and I think it's going to be a very good discussion. And today's discussion is about gun ownership. So let's start with Mr. D Jackson, since he was one of the first gun owners in this conversation. Mr. Jackson, when did you decide to get a gun, and kind of what went into that decision?
I've had a gun for maybe about 5-6 years now. I have a daughter. I'm a single father. I'm a homeowner, and plus I got eyes and ears, man. It's crazy out there, and I have to protect mine at all costs. I've never shot my gun at anybody. Hopefully I have to. But I feel like we need to exercise our right. We do have a right to protect ourselves, so it's strictly for protection,
I kind of inherited my gun. It was my father passed away last year, and it was one of his. My oldest brother got like all his shotguns. He's, from the South. Always was kind of raised by guns, raised around guns, so I feel comfortable around them with the right people. I've been considering getting one for a while now, permit, getting proper training. I have gone to the range, but my first gun, it wasn't my inheritance. I bought one.
Now, Dion, I think Dion is similar to me, but why don't you go ahead and kind of run down why, not necessarily, you said you're not against gun ownership, like would you get one for your own home, do you think?
So, yes, I would get one for my own home. In particular, the brother Lamont mentioned about moving down south. And all of my parents and relatives and whatnot are from the South. And the South kind of speaks to a very different culture, specifically when we're talking about the gun ownership and the practice of your Second Amendment rights. I think the climate and culture, particularly in the South, when it talks about protecting your home, protecting your property, and even, if you're paying attention to today's news, this rise in extremist militia groups and such, and that potential threat of your common everyday citizens. In fact, in some cases, it seems stronger there than it does here in the North to me. Now, I recognize here in Chicago, we got a lot of gun violence amongst the youth, right? We've been living in a South Shore community for 15 years. None of that has come to me. You understand what I mean? None of that has come to me. It hasn't come to my family as of yet. I've never felt threatened inside of my home. As far as me being a neighbor and a community speaker and a person who speaks to my neighbors and things of that nature, we haven't had that problem come directly to the home. So I've raised 3 daughters in my home, and I haven't been as inclined to purchase a gun up until now. Now, with me being a business owner, and I operate a cafe, a lot of my customers and a lot of the community that comes in, they either wonder if I have a gun or if I'm going to get a gun to protect that particular business. And that's something that I ponder now. I don't want to bring that atmosphere, right? Because I think that you kind of create a climate by pushing a particular culture or a climate. And so I don't want to create that environment, but for the sake of protection, that's the Second Amendment right. And our country has been built upon gun violence from day one. And so, if you want to survive and you know that there's that potential threat, then you have to protect yourself, and you have a right to.
Well, that's a good segue, Dion. I guess my first question, and this is to everyone, how do you feel increased legal gun ownership, like if a large number of Black people went and legally got their guns with the licensing and everything that you need, how do you think that would affect the Black community overall?
I think it'll have a positive effect with the proper training. I think it's necessary now. I mean, just like Dion was saying, the current climate of the world, especially in the country, I think it requires us to be armed and ready. You know, we're gonna have some stuff that's going on where I don't like saying black on black, it's proximity crimes, you know what I'm saying, where we get into it with each other. But we got armed race soldiers out there disguised as police, you know, just taking us out. You know what I'm saying? We got white supremacists out there who feel deputized that they have the right to take us out. You know, if they felt that they may not make it home but shooting us with impunity, then they might think twice. If they felt like, okay, this brother right here who's just chilling at this restaurant with his family, he might be strapped and he might not just take the BS that I want to put him through. They might think twice. You know, I think we got a right. We're the only people that don't exercise our right, you know, the way other people do. You know, me personally, I think it's needed. You know, I'm not, you know, asking for violence or anything like that, but like, enough is enough. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, you know, we've been targeted for way too long, you know, and we've been doing the same thing for way too long. Something needs to change. So I'm an advocate of legal gun ownership, definitely, especially for the Black community.
Again, my thought is pretty much that when you talk about the legalities of it, the legality behind it and such, oftentimes in the North, particularly with the Democratic Party, I'm going to speak politics to it, they're talking about the gang violence, the street violence, the guns in the greater city. Most of those guns, practically all of those guns, are not really regulated. Right. These are not legal gun owners. These are not legal gun users. And then, you know, as far as regulatory practices, the biggest thing that I'm concerned about are the semi-automatic and the automatic military-grade arms that a lot of citizens have access to. So, you know, particularly like Brother Jackson is talking about, when you're starting to talk about the South and you're talking about the militia and you're talking about more and more Black people owning guns. I mean, we have open conversations right now about race wars taking place in this country. And so when you're talking about people arming themselves with military background, with military grade weapons, it's only right that people protect themselves. But if you want to avoid that type of conflict, then we're talking about regulating this thing, your ownership or protecting your home and property to handguns, maybe a rifle, something where it's not so much where you're talking about ultimate assault. And see, this is what we've seen in our schools. This is what we've seen in many of the, you know, mass murderers and whatnot. They're using assault automatic weapons to destroy American citizens. And I'm not for that. I don't think that those should be in the hands of the average everyday citizen.
Can I ask you a question? Sorry to cut you off, Kev.
No, go ahead, by all means.
But I agree with you, Dion. But if the reality is that, you know, M16s and all these assault rifles are already on the street, and let's say they're in the hands of like white supremacists, and you said that there are open talks about race wars right now, like, what do you think about the Black community getting their hand on it then? I mean, it's already out there.
Yeah, and see, that's what I'm talking about. There's brothers that are organized right now. You probably seen it on TV last week. Right. Who already are military trained and organized. You know, obviously, when it's all said and done, I'm about protecting yourself, protecting the community, and protecting our property. I mean, throughout history, you know, a lot of times they try to make it seem like we were pacifists throughout, you know, American history. But we had to rebel. I mean, there was an all-out war against us. I think that, you know, Brother Smith had asked earlier, I don't know if you're going to bring this up again, but you had asked earlier about the NRA. And oftentimes when you hear the history of the NRA, there's a direct association and a link with the Ku Klux Klan and their mission to kill and destroy and depopulate the South of Black people. So, I mean, obviously, if we are in a situation where we have people who are coming after us personally with military grade weapons, you fight fire with fire.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that if we were to be talking about any type of regulatory practice, when we're talking about the law itself, I think that the law should regulate so that those things are no longer available on market. Those who have them, they have them, right? But they shouldn't be available on the market.
But the only thing with that is that I've heard that, and I'll get you in a second, Blake, is that yes, I can buy the gun, and the gun is not automatic, it's not semi-automatic, but then you can get a $30 add-on piece and, within a couple hours, make it fully automatic. I mean, I think like the modifications is another thing. But I'm sorry, Blake, go ahead, man.
The issue is, they're already out there. I disagree with like putting like a cutoff and saying that like, whoever got them, because you got to think these militias been around 30, 40 years. They've already had access to it. Being in the Midwest, there's traveling gun shows, just, tables and tables of guns that you could just pick from. Yeah, there should be some sort of like restrictions.
Well, no, I mean, I think the one thing that we've seen in this country is that if the government, we'll call them the government, doesn't want black people to do something, they will find a law, they will create a law that will prevent them from doing it. They didn't want black people to vote. They created poll taxes and reading exams and changing the polling places. So, I mean, I guess my thing with any regulation, a regulation is only as beneficial as the people who create the regulation. You see what I'm saying? So, like, yes, I don't think that any private citizen necessarily needs to have a gun. They can shoot, 1,000 rounds in 10 seconds. But at the same time, if I don't trust the government, or if I don't trust the main gun lobby in this country, I don't know if I trust their regulations. You see the regulations they suggest.
Yeah, so, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but see,
go ahead.
That's a big thing with any of the laws. Like, okay, let's say during this Trump era, a lot of people have been pushing to halt First Amendment rights. They don't want people to speak out because there's so many racists speaking out right now during this era, and he says so many foul things that we then go back and say, hey, he shouldn't be allowed to say that. Hey, Facebook shouldn't allow him to be able to speak this way. Hey, the newspaper shouldn't publish XYZ. Well, that's our freedom of speech. And what ends up happening is we end up shooting our own self in the foot when we start going against certain regulations. You see what I mean? And so, again, that's why I keep pushing that I am for the Second Amendment rights to bear arms, because we know why it's here. We know what it is for. And I also agree wholeheartedly that black people need to be smart about possessing guns and such and protecting their home, because you do have loonies out there, just as, white urban America are afraid of what the gangbangers on the street are doing with their guns. People who are living in the rural areas or living in the South should be quite aware of what these militias and everything else are doing to their guns, because they are internal terrorists. They are internal terrorists that oftentimes, particularly with this particular government that we have in place right now, they are not regulating or anti what this particular hate group, militia groups and such are doing.
Right. Yeah. At best, you could say that the current administration is not, they are at least neutral to some of these groups. And I think it is fair to say that they are almost supportive. It's almost like, yes, I don't think white supremacists are bad, wink, wink, nod, nod. And then they continue to act and no one really checks them.
Right, and shouldn't that be alarming enough for black people?
Yeah.
To be ready, to like, okay, they are ready. You know what I'm saying? If they're not ready, they're definitely getting ready right now. We should be ready. So I'm not advocating. I definitely don't want a race war to start tomorrow, not on my front doorsteps and everything. But if these white supremacists, if they feel empowered right now because of the leadership, that should put us on alert. That should be enough right there, in my opinion. You know, like I said before, I want to be clear. It's not about like taking the war, the fight to somebody's front steps, though. But I'm gonna be ready if it knocks on my door. You know, we got kids. You know what I'm saying? We got a whole community that we got to protect.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And see, and that's why I keep using the terminology of regulation, because when, you know, like when Brother Young was talking about doing background checks, seeing what the mental state of certain individuals were, what their affiliations are, and these sorts of things, I think that helps when you're starting to see who's buying the guns, how many guns are they buying, what are they buying these guns for.
But you know,
earlier on, I had an image up of the Black Panther Party. Well, the CIA and the FBI was all over the Black Panther Party investigating what could they potentially do when they had guns, because they thought of them as a threat. And I think that the militia groups and such, particularly those who are affiliated with the Klan, those who are affiliated with Nazis, those who are affiliated with, you know, some type of Make America Great type of mentality, I think that those groups should be looked at through the same lens as an internal terrorist group, because that's what they are.
Ideally, that would be great, you know, but who's administering the text, evaluations? You know what I'm saying? Because like, just like redlining back in the day,
right?
You know, they'll find something. You'll start to see a statistic now that 95% of the Black people suffer from some mental illness, and we won't be, you know, mentally capable of owning a gun. Just like they did in redlining. You know, they switch up the rules when it comes to us. If too many of us get on code, and I still agree with there needs to be regulations and things like that, but that'll definitely happen. It'll all of a sudden just be like, they'll discover some mental illness that you never knew you had. They'll discover.
Yeah, and I agree, but then I think that also once that occurs, then this black market that you all know that exists so well will just continue to do its thing, because everybody is making money from it. You see what I mean? And they're not going to lose their money.
Thieves, brothers will keep getting locked up, getting caught with illegal guns and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
The cycle continue, man. It's kind of like a lose-lose.
No, absolutely. Wanted to go back to the point Dion brought up about the NRA. So the National Rifle Association is they're the biggest gun lobby in the country. So in terms of registered gun owners, they are the largest group. They are also very predominantly white and very predominantly Republican. And I'm not necessarily one to get into Republican Democrat, but do you think if, let's say, Black people started owning guns in large numbers, you know, legitimately, you know, through registration and everything, should they all then join the NRA? Would that change kind of the angle of the NRA? Would that change them any, do you think?
I don't think that it would change them at all. I think that they would start to become more in line with trying to make the laws that Brother Jackson is talking about to limit those who can get guns. See, because right now, even this conversation that we're having, if this was done in silence, and you woke up the next morning and all of a sudden 1 million Black people owned arms and had access to all of these particular arms, then it would have been no problem. But when we kind of put it out there that this is what we're doing and we're joining and whatnot, that's when I think a lot of the anti-regulation starts to take place. Yeah. Because as of right now, we can stand on our First Amendment rights, constitutionally as citizens, our Second Amendment rights, constitutionally as citizens. The only reason why some of these cats are getting locked up now is because these illegal search and seizures and things of that nature is unconstitutional. So as citizens, us knowing our rights allows us to do a whole lot of things in silence without necessarily making an announcement about it. But it's only when they recognize that we are catching up, as Brother Jackson is basically pushing us to do, if we catch up. And I think that that's kind of what this, Brother Young is putting into a lot of perspective. This is what that North-South thing does. Because down South, my relatives down South, everybody had guns. There was no question. You know, as far as protecting their property, there was no question. They had guns and it wasn't a big deal. But I think that up North, because of the connotations of the streets, people tend to shy away from it a little bit more. And I think that they fall in line with liberal party goers who tend to be anti-gun. So they kind of push the anti-gun rhetoric even to us here up in the North, more so than what's going on in the South.
D. Jackson, you're a gun owner. Would you join the NRA?
I don't feel they represent what I represent. You know, like you said, there's been cases. It's too contradictory for me. You know what I'm saying? It's rooted in white supremacy. Like I could trace everything back to white supremacy. But there was a case, and I'm sorry, I'm not prepared right now, but there was a case of a young lady actually in Florida where she actually stood her ground and the NRA didn't say nothing. It was a sister.
Right.
You know, but they was quick to defend a lot of other, you know, white dudes who just mixed like that. So, I mean, they've shown their true colors to me, you know, so I wouldn't be opposed to joining up with some like-minded brothers, and we have our own, you know, association and things like that. But I don't think the NRA represents what I represent. You know, I don't think we're like-minded individuals. You know,
with the Philando Castile case, that was one of the huge things because Philando Castile was a legal gun owner.
A legal gun owner, yeah. And
NRA was silent as it related to his case. He 100%. Was a legal gun owner. He had all of his credentials, and he still got shot by law enforcement, and it was crickets from the NRA.
Right, and I believe the Corinne Gaines too, as well.
Right.
When they bust into our home, you know, everything was legal, and yeah, they were silent when it come to us. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm not trying to rock with that.
So I think everyone's pretty much on the same page in terms of the NRA. Blade, I'm coming to you. Would you join a black gun club? I know there are black gun clubs, maybe not as large as the NRA, but there are black gun clubs all over the country. Would you join a black gun club?
Yeah, I would to some extent, but also I don't want to open myself up to investigation. You hear what I'm saying?
I do.
Just I don't know. I'm kind of just because I'm looking at the one video. He remind me of like a modern day Khalid Muhammad. Like I'm digging with his rhetoric. I'm digging what he's saying. I'm for it. I'm for protection. We are told like COINTELPRO ended, but to be honest, it still exists. It might not be, it might not be labeled as that.
But kind of.
They do surveil all of it. Like
surveillance as
will.
They listening now,
right? Because they know how many of those that are on the other side that are in the police force. They'll give those statistics out periodically, and you'll see it in the news. You might actually get an actual reference. They're not identifying names.
Dion, coming back to you real quick. I know you said you raised 3 daughters here in Chicago and South Shore.
Yep.
How old are your daughters, if you don't mind me asking?
Wow, the oldest one just turned 25 yesterday.
Okay. Happy birthday, Dion's daughter.
Thank you. One will be 23 and the other one is 21.
Okay, so they're all adults. They're all grown.
They're all grown now.
So let's say your 21-year-old comes to you, says, Dad, I'm living in this apartment by myself. I think I'm gonna go get a gun. Well, what would your reaction to that be?
Oh man, get it. That's my 21-year-old daughter. She feels like she's not protected and unsafe in her environment. I worry about them all the time.
Okay.
They cross on the other side of the country. If you feel like you need that for protection, definitely. I've armed them with mace and anything else I can do when they are traveling around. And see, it's different. We all grown men. We all know where to go, where not to go, and we know how to de-escalate situations when we need to. You know what I mean? And I don't give that to them. You know what I'm saying? I was just telling my daughter yesterday, I've lived, twice your life already. Everything you'd have been through, I'd have been through twice already. So you couldn't be as wise as I am about navigating certain situations. And so I need you to be protected. So yeah, I'm completely for them having their guns. And it's different though. Like, you would ask me, would I say the same thing to my son? Of course I would want my son to have protection as well if I had one. But what if my son is running around going over to his girlfriend's house or driving down the block and he got a gun in his possession? And even if he legally said, yeah, officer, I have a gun in my glove compartment, you know, if the officer feels like he wants to pop something and act the wrong way on any particular day, and he has a gun up on him or in his possession, that could go left real quick. We see it all the time. I mean, my daughters have sat in the car with me when I've driven through Hyde Park, 10 o'clock at night, picking them up from someplace, and I happen to go down Woodlawn all the way through the university turf, if you will. And me driving speed limit through university turf, a university cop stops me, and you know, you would have thought that I had, you know, every drug and every weapon in the world on me that day, and she had to witness that type of harassment from some untrained, out of town, racist officer. So, you know, just imagine how if that situation was a little different, if I would have reacted a little different, if I, you know, told him that I had something on my possession or anything else if he wanted to search my car. So, you know, that's a, you know, it's a tricky water. It's a tricky water that we have to navigate with this. But again, it is my right to possess a gun. It is my right to follow whatever regulations my state requires as far as holding that gun, where I can hold that gun, where I can possess it, and what I have to do in those situations. So I am for that particular right.
So this is kind of the last question of the last topic. So I believe D. Jackson is the only person here who actually went and kind of purchased the gun. For people like all three of us, if we were to say, you know, I want to go get a pistol, I want to go get something, what would you suggest? What are the things we need to keep in mind kind of the first time gun buying?
Well, what I would say, first of all, every black to have their FOID card. First, you need your FOID card. First, you can literally fill out.
I'm sorry, say that again. What is it? The FOID card?
The FOID card, FOID. Okay. That's pretty much your firearm permit.
Okay.
You can't purchase a gun without that. The funny thing is, I don't know if it changed now. You can actually go buy an assault weapon and walk out with it today. You buy a pistol, you buy a handgun, you got to wait 72 hours to pick it up and everything. I always thought that was just kind of whack and backwards. But I would definitely recommend doing some research. I would recommend going to the range and shooting that gun before you actually purchase it. You know, because every 9mm is not the same. You know, it's like me, I'm a lefty. You know, some of them you empty the clip, you have to hold it with your right hand. So you gotta, you know, research the gun, physically shoot the gun. You know, a few times too. It's crazy. Every time I go to the range, I see like a white dude with like his little kids, his like 9-10-year-old kids, and they up in there shooting everything. They teach them at a young age, you know. So I'm definitely an advocate of that too with my daughter and things like that too. But research is key. You know, research on how to be safe with it. Like I said, go actually physically touch it, shoot it up multiple times, and try multiple guns. And then I would definitely say have more than one firearm as well too. You know, but the biggest thing is research on how to be safe. What's the safest? You know, which one you feel more comfortable with, and definitely use it before you buy it. You know, it's like buying a bed or something. I wouldn't recommend buying a bed if you haven't laid on it yet, or a couch or something like that.
Dion, Blade, any thoughts after this conversation in terms of getting one? Dion, for your business, and Blade, just kind of for your personal protection. Any change of thoughts after this conversation?
I mean, you know, again, I'm looking at the current climate. The current climate has pushed me toward gun ownership more so than at any point in my life. Just kind of looking at the current climate of America right now. Over on 75th Street, protests was taking place, and folks thought that there was an impending threat to their businesses. You know, outsiders, if you will, that have established businesses in our area. They had full-on assault weapons and were on their rooftops waiting to shoot black citizens throughout the South Side because they thought that they may have entered or could come upon their property. So that's what we're up against in a sense.
I still do videography, so and just being out in this current climate, even in my neighborhood, I have to deal with assault rifles. In this current climate, where people are kind of really showing their ignorance, showing their true colors, being a black man, business owner, being somebody that keeps to themselves and still have to, try to keep your head on the swivel. Extra protection is definitely needed.
Well, brothers, I appreciate we've been talking for almost an hour, and I think we could talk for 2 hours more if we could. But I appreciate all you brothers. I think it was a good conversation. If you want to continue the conversation, check us all out on social media. Hashtag ThinkTank309. So thank you, brothers. I appreciate you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you for inviting me.
Thanks for having me.
Definitely, man. Thank you.